talk to you about a real world example. And it's a pretty interesting example that we're working with a very large airline on. The use case here is that an end user needs to ask a question around aviation safety, maybe the protocol. What do I do in the event that I need to extinguish a fire in a flight? The problem here is that there's so many different resources within internal Confluence page or internal SharePoint that most of the time an employee is probably going to resort to going online and looking for answers. And with things like ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Gemini, Mistral, all of these different generative AI apps that are out there, it's become kind of this new search engine. So the scenario here is that we have an employee that, they're not satisfied with what they found internally, they're not satisfied with what they're finding online, so they decide to go to something like ChatGPT. And one of the questions that they may ask is, what should I do if a panel falls off mid-flight? That's a legitimate question. Some of the challenges that exist with this approach is that there might be multiple different answers depending on which LLM that you're asking. You might get a different response if you're to go to Grok, or if you're to go to Gemini or ChatGPT or any of these other ones out there. Then you have things like Perplexity, where you can select multiple different models. You're going to get multiple different responses. Most importantly, LLMs are non-deterministic. So the use case here from this very large airline is that they want to ensure whenever they get a response back from ChatGPT or any of these AI apps, is that they're getting a consistent response that is following the internal process for airline safety. So in this next example here, one of the things that you're going to see of how this plays out, these are two different examples from different LLMs that are out there or different generative AI apps. One might be ChatGPT, one might be Grok. We're getting different examples here, what we should do. Some of it's very similar. Step one, it's actually consistent, stay calm. But as you kind of start going down the list, things start to change and what that process looks like. So this is what we call the winning move. This is where we have an end user looking for aircraft safety questions, again, unsatisfied with what they're finding internally and what they're finding online within Google or Bing or any of these search engines. So they go to a generative AI app. One of the things that we're able to do is we're able to understand the intention behind the prompt that a user is entering. So in this case here, we understand that this user is entering a prompt around falling off, or the panels falling off mid-flight. We understand that that has to do with aircraft safety and multiple other behaviors that may fall under this particular question. So what we will do is we have the ability to reroute this prompt based on the intention over to an internal LLM that's been trained on their internal process. This provides the airline with much more consistency and reliability that the employees asking questions around aircraft safety and those protocols are they're going to get the actual correct response from their internal process of what they should follow in the event of something catastrophic that happens. And then most importantly, the answer that they get back is from an LLM that's been trained on that internal process within that same window. So I'm going to switch screens and share what exactly that looks like. So this is our WitnessAI console. And what we're seeing here is the policy engine. Policy engine works similar to like a firewall rule. Anytime that we see the first match, that's what's actually gonna hit. So in this case here, we have the Latin American corporate policy. This is a policy that's applied to me. So I'm going to go into this policy since it's my corporate policy, and I'm going to select the guardrail around behavior activity. This is a guardrail that we're using to implement this use case within a very large airline. What we're looking at is defining the specific behaviors that we're interested in matching against. So for example, aviation safety, in-flight emergency, cabin safety procedure, aircraft safety, and aircraft malfunction. As you can see, we have multiple different actions that we can apply to this particular prompt based on the intention. So in this case here, we can decide to block it if we just want to disallow these types of questions from getting asked in general. We could allow it. We could warn against it and just give them a little disclaimer. You may want to check the response from the LLM with an internal resource to ensure that it aligns with our internal process. In this case here, for this specific airline, we want to reroute the prompt. So in this case here, I've selected an internal LLM that's been trained on aircraft safety questions. In this case, it's Grok. It's a provider, and we're using Llama 3.1. And the message that is going to appear is this aircraft safety protocol message. It's going to say your question was rerouted to Witness Airlines' LLM to ensure our internal protocol is followed. Now, this particular message is completely customizable, just really depends on how the customer wants to address this particular prompt. But they could also refer them back to their internal SharePoint site or internal link on their aircraft safety protocols. So I'm going to move over to ChatGPT and let's run something in real time. So first I'm going to say, hello, hope you are doing well. Let's just send this prompt over to ChatGPT. And of course, it's wishing me that I'm doing well as well. So I'm going to ask it, how would I go about extinguishing a fire on a flight? And let's go ahead and send this prompt. Message routing as per your organization's policy starts to populate as the question is being answered. Shortly after, we see this prompt or the response that we're getting back from our internal LLM. And you also get this message here that the message has been rerouted or this prompt was rerouted. We also see the message that we defined in our policy, aircraft safety protocol. Your question was rerouted to Witness Airlines' LLM to ensure our internal protocol is followed by the actual response from the LLM. Now, this becomes very powerful in the sense that we can reroute and take actions based on the intention of a particular prompt. Now, imagine if we ask this in a different language. You could ask it in Spanish, Japanese, multiple different languages, and still apply the same policy. This is something that a DLP solution cannot do when we're talking about intention. We can match against specific words within DLP, but we can't match against intention. Another example might be, what is the best way to secure a panel on a flight or on a plane so the doors don't fall off? So again, we're going to go through this prompt here, and you see that this message is getting rerouted to the internal LLM. So this is what we're doing from within the browser, right? This is the response that we're getting from our internal LLM that we've integrated via API, gets populated within this Chrome session that I have with ChatGPT. Now, if I go back into the WitnessAI console, I can go into our conversations view. And when I go into the conversation view, I can see my particular prompt that I sent over. So I have a couple of prompts here. One, hope you're doing well, followed by a couple of other prompts here. So if I scroll down to the list here, I can see the response back from ChatGPT. How would I go about extinguishing a fire on a flight? I can select this analyze risk option. And on the right-hand side, we're going to see that the action was rerouted. So this particular prompt was rerouted to a different LLM, followed by which policy this was triggered. In this case, my Latin American corporate policy triggered. We can also get some other details, such as the topic, the subtopic, and the intention. If I continue to scroll up in this conversation, I'll also see my last prompt where I asked it the best way to secure a panel on a plane so the doors don't fly off. So again, I can analyze the risk here. Again, it matches my intention here that this was routed. If I go into my initial question that was asked and I select analyze risk, you'll see that the action was allowed. We just allowed it to go to ChatGPT. We didn't have to reroute this question because we understand the intention has nothing to do with aircraft safety. You can actually take this a step further. We can actually do another AI Powerplay on this, on securing internal intellectual property. Things around like, think of a pharmaceutical drug ingredient, or the components of what it takes to make a new drug to the market. We can understand the intention of what that is and block those types of prompts from ever making it to a public LLM. So there's a lot of different use cases to ensure that we can reroute. But for this case, for an airline safety side of things, this is something that we're absolutely able to help with today. With that being said, I'm gonna just share with you the last slide here about running the play if you're interested in being able to control user AI prompts with behavioral intelligence. Feel free to scan the QR code here and read our white paper. Until next time, we'll see you for episode 2. Thank you.